back to our channel. My name is Nicole and I'm a senior graphic designer here at Farm Design.
And my name is Aaron. I am the creative director here at Farm.
Up to this point, we've shared a lot of high-level growth mindsets and foundational lessons. And thanks to your feedback in the comment section, today we're actually gonna focus on a little bit more of a deeper dive into our creative process. So if you don't know us, here at Farm Design, we create brand systems. And this trickles into a lot of different categories. But today we're gonna specifically talk about the CPG space.
Do people know what CPG is?
CPG.
Did you know what it was when you first started?
Not at all, no.
I didn't either, but for those of you who don't know, it's consumer packaged goods.
Yes. And here we work with a lot of clients, large and small, and they range from existing clients that need further development, new brands that need to be built from the ground up, or existing brands that just need a complete refresh.
And another brand that we worked with recently that we had a lot of fun with is Big Island Coffee Roasters, which I think is a perfect case study for today's episode. I think it'll help illustrate the A to the Z on how we took a brand from even onboarding them as a client to doing the creative discovery and even to eventually delivering the mechanicals. So we have a lot to unpack. Yes, so I don't even know where to begin this process. What do you think?
I mean, I think the best place to start is probably getting to know the client.
So let's start there.
Let's do it.
We're able to get a lot of our clients through basically just technology. We put out a lot of our content on portfolio sites, our website, social media. And this really attracts a lot of people and a lot of potential clients on a global stage. Typically they find us there because there's something that they are attracted to. They will then typically email, sometimes it's a phone call, and it's my job as the business owner to sort of vet through these and sort of weed out the sort of high value versus low value clients. In this case, I got an email from Kelly from Big Island Coffee Roasters. It was very simple, very succinct. It was straightforward about their current challenges with their existing product and they were looking for a branding agency to help them. So after we do some high-level research on the client and we get a sense of that there's something that we might be interested in, I like to set up a call. My goal is I want to understand three things, what I call the 3 Ps. The 3 Ps are people, portfolio, and profit. Obviously, the first thing I want to understand is who they are as people. Understand what their belief system is and what their vision is. And is it someone that we can get really sort of excited about working with? The second is I want to understand about the project itself. Can it potentially be a portfolio piece, something that we can get really excited about? And third is obviously we need to talk about budget, and that's the profit aspect of it. So I want to make sure that we have at least 2 out of the 3 in order for us to consider them as a client. Really, the golden unicorn is getting all 3, and I will never accept a project that has just 1. Once we determine it's a project that we're really interested in, we like to set up an in-person meeting. In this case, Kelly and Brandon, they're located in Hawaii, so we couldn't meet up. So this is pretty common, so we'll set up a video conference call. And our goal is, again, is just to sort of introduce ourselves, get to know them better, and capture this sort of high-level insight on the project before we go to the next stage.
About 8 years ago, in 2010, we found a farm on Craigslist for sale, and we were looking for a farm anywhere really in Oregon, but we found this one. It was in Hawaii. It seemed a lot better than farming carrots and cabbage. It was a abandoned coffee farm, basically, or a dilapidated coffee farm. So we met the owners and we got along really well with them, and we decided he decided to sell the farm to us, and we moved to Hawaii basically within a few months of finding it on Craigslist. So over the course of the next couple years, we taught ourselves how to farm coffee, and we really tried to clean up the place, and taught ourselves how to roast and cup and process. And within a couple of years, 2.5, we won the statewide championship for best Hawaiian coffee. It earned grand champion in the Hawaii cupping competition.
I actually wasn't even a coffee drinker before having a coffee farm, which is a little ironic, but I drink coffee.
Really, the objective for our first meeting is nothing very prescriptive. We come in very open-minded. We really want to just be able to diagnose and understand what their challenges are, what their pain points are.
One day we kind of stumbled on a new way to treat coffee because we've been very experimental with coffee and cacao. We tumbled into this idea of using coffee instead of chocolate in a bar. And we didn't really think that it was going to go anywhere. Like everything, it was just like something that we were playing around with. Well, as friends of ours got their hands on it, it was like they were so excited about it. You make a lot of these, I would buy them. And so we're like, oh, we should develop this further. The bar that we have now is a prototype that we're playing around with. But I hesitate with the design because I don't know if the Hawaii that feels so close to us will translate to people if they see the bar in New York. If they're going to understand what the boar is.
Well, really, I mean, the current packaging right now is us just kind of taking our best crack at it, and it's not very good. We're pretty cognizant of that.
So with the video call, Nicole and I were able to ask Kelly and Brandon some high-level questions to just start the conversation and get a better understanding what their needs are. They were really content with what they were doing with the coffee, but they wanted to explore new possibilities with communicating the uniqueness of this espresso bar. So through this call, we were able to capture a lot of the sort of pain points and challenges that they had with their current packaging. And so here are the 4 things that we learned, and that was sort of the lens that we're going to look through as we try to solve this problem. Number 1 is that the consumers were having a hard time understanding that this is a coffee product, not a chocolate product. Second, they really wanted to tell the Hawaii origin story. This is something that is really true and authentic to their brand, and it's also that really unique thing that consumers are attracted to. Third, because they already had an existing roasted coffee product, they already had some brand legacy. They had a logo, they had some colors, and they wanted to try to retain as much of that as possible in the repackage of this coffee bar. And lastly, number 4, they wanted to elevate the perception of their product. They wanted this to be perceived as a premium product that can appeal to boutique stores.
Long story short, we decided that it would be a really great fit, and we're going to share with you how it all went down. Once we verbally engage with the client and better understand the task at hand and some of their challenges, we will then also provide a brand questionnaire to ask about their brand essence and to tie up any loose ends of things that we might have missed in the phone call. There shouldn't be a super strict formula for your brand questionnaire. We believe that every client is different and you need to ask curated questions based on those clients' needs. We want to capture as much insight as possible, and to do that, we kind of think of ourselves as design therapists. Our clients have all the answers that we need. We just need to ask the right questions. So once we have an understanding of the project and the task at hand, before we just run off to the races, we like to internally strategize and figure out what our first moves are before even beginning the creative process. What this does is it helps us to not spin our wheels too much at the beginning of a project and gives us a solid foundation to work off of. We like to assess what are we trying to accomplish and what are the objectives? What is the essence of the brand and what are those sort of key descriptors? And what are the main points of communication? These really act as our guardrails for when we are in the creative discovery stage. Okay, now we're off to the races. The creative stage can be a really magical time, but it can also be a really frustrating time because you can't just press a button to come up with the perfect idea. Everything we've done up to this point, from engaging with the client and establishing objectives and figuring out those points of communication, this is all measurable and data specific. while every designer's creative process is a little bit different, there are some common practices that we all use as a team to really streamline our process. I'm going to take you through 5 different stages of our creative process that we use to come up with solid design directions for our clients. Step number 1 is to collect information. Once we have a good understanding of the brief, each designer will do their own conceptual and visual research. A trick that we always do for packaging design is what we call a packaging skeleton. This is where we take the absolute plain pieces that we know, such as the dimensions of the form factor, the main points of communication, and we create this basic skeleton using strictly a neutral font such as Gotham or Helvetica, and we only use grayscale tones. It only takes a couple of minutes to lay out these basic plain pieces, but it's going to save you so much time in the long run. Through this process, we are looking for things to help spark ideas. We look up visual inspiration in design references that capture some of the aesthetic that we are aiming for. Oftentimes, our clients will actually provide us a Pinterest board of things that they like, so a lot of that legwork is already done for us. It's important to not just capture references of other designs. Conceptual research is just as important. In this case, there is a lot to research in regards to the Hawaiian lifestyle. We looked up things like the local flora and fauna, Hawaiian folklore, and even some of the history of coffee in the Hawaiian region. So once we've collected enough conceptual and visual inspiration, our next step is to do quick sprints. In this stage, we are intentionally not trying to make anything perfect. We like to do an exercise that we call Frankensteins. This is where we take some of the inspiration that we have pulled and mask it out into the form factor that we are using. This process allows us to uncover some things that are working or not working, and it gives us a better sense of directions that we should further develop. A really important reminder is that we are not intending to copy other designs. If there's something that you're really liking about a design, it's important to understand what are the basics of it and how can you make it in a new and unique way. You'll notice that at this stage, we aren't focusing on designing a logo. We curate existing marks as placeholders so we can assess what style of logo feels right. At a later stage, we will then design a logo with similar characteristics to preserve time. In a really short time, we are able to generate a lot of concepts. But before we get too far along in the process, we like to bring in our creative director to help share his creative insight and help us weed out some of the concepts that aren't working.
So show me where you are, sort of get me up to speed on what you've uncovered and what you've discovered thus far.
Okay.
So at this stage, it's all about just looking high level, what are the possibilities? So I like to have a lot of discussions with the designers on their vision, on the certain moves that they made, and I'm looking at it through my eyes, through the understanding of what I heard from the clients, what their challenges are, and what is the end goal and how we can bridge that gap. And so I'm that sort of that sounding board that allows them to sort of get closer to the end result.
So these first few boards are kind of looking at this sense of like landscape and Hawaii. So I'll just pull in like sort of imagery and just kind of more expressive graphic looks.
Yep.
This one I was looking at something a little bit more like simplified and just simple shapes.
Yeah. I see a lot of shapes that start to pique my interest. So from your first board here, though I like a couple of these, the way they look aesthetically, like the tan one here with the mosaic or of visuals. It's appealing at first. The organic nature of those shapes is a little challenging to read. I don't know if I would be as memorable if I saw it in a retail a second or third time. I don't know if I would remember that. I like that there's something simple starting to happen. I think you're getting you're even using some of the brand colors that they have. I think those are some legacy aspects that make sense to me. So I see shape, I see color, so I think there's some elements that start to pull over there. I think through conversations at this stage that we can challenge each other and we can see what works or doesn't work. It's what I call compare and contrast. It's the compare and contrasting. Talking through it allows us to find why things are working, or just as importantly, why things aren't working. Is the pig's name Puna or Pele?
It's Puna, I believe.
Pig's name is Puna. Yeah. They're also in the Puna region of Hawaii.
Yep.
Oh.
So I think that's where they got the name.
Genius. So I think it makes even more sense having the pig, because I think the region is called Puna.
Puna, Hawaii. I think I had this idea of kind of like having a merge between that volcano and the head. I know currently their logo is kind of just the entire like boar's body.
Right.
So I don't know if we make that more iconic and just have like a boar illustration.
Yeah. I think iconic is, I like it. I like the head-on version, the symmetry of that, better than this side version. Yeah. I'm wondering if you can sort of merge those two together somehow. You have, instead of the boar being separate from the volcano story, could you merge those two somehow?
Yeah, and start to kind of see it
so
somehow.
maybe there has like a visual double entendre, something hidden, I think makes it more memorable and interesting. I think the uniqueness comes from the designers exploring the unlikely juxtaposition of different references or different elements. And I think that is the key in keeping your creative process very open, because it's not prescriptive. We're not really knowing what the outcome is going to be. We are intentionally just being very open-minded and just throwing stuff against the wall.
So once we've spent time executing these quick sprints, before we make anything look super polished, we like to have a group critique to figure out which directions we should pursue.
So these are the concepts that Nicole and Christine were working on. So basically, I just want to get everyone's opinion on what you think is working or is not working.
Here we are assessing if the concepts are heading in the right direction. We're discussing to see if there are any other holes that we may need to dig. And we're also assessing if we have a good range of concepts. In the end, we'll end up showing probably 4 to 6 concepts, and it's important that we have a good spectrum of designs within the parameters of the creative brief. So after our team huddle, we will then break out and further develop the directions that we picked during that critique. If we're aiming to present 4 concepts to the client, we will actually have 6 to 8 concepts that we are dialing in just to make sure that we have our bases covered. we've been running this marathon race trying to get our concepts just right for our client. We settled on these 4 directions that our team was super excited about. So now that we've settled on our final concepts, this stage is all about dialing in those details and figuring out a presentation to best convey our designs to the client. With packaging, we make sure to mock it up on a render to make it look as realistic as possible. Context is always key to telling a story, so we like to pair our design with lifestyle imagery to bring it all to life. The presentation should always be intuitive enough to the point where if you aren't there to talk about your work, the presentation can do enough of the talking to showcase itself.
So I was pretty happy with our end results.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
We ended up presenting 4 concepts to them, and we knew that because we were presenting this via a video to them in Hawaii, we really wanted to keep it simple, and that's because we were there to really walk them through it. And so we were really just trying to capture the brand essence and through colors and imagery and different flavor SKUs. So.
And I think right away when we presented this to them, there's that sort of that excitement, but there's that anxiety right from the very first presentation that we got the sort of the cues from the client that they were really excited just from concept number 1. So that was sort of like, for me, it was like a big sort of.
Yeah, they were super excited about that one. And then when concept 2 came up, they were like, oh, this might be the one too, I don't know. So it was really cool to see that excitement from them.
Do we tell them which one they picked?
Ooh, can you guess?
Here are the 4 concepts. Which one do you think you would pick?
They went with
Open the envelope.
Oh, drum roll. They went with concept number 1.
Number 1. So they picked concept number 1, and they surprisingly didn't have a lot of edits with it. And so it sort of segues into sort of the next stage on the process.
Yes. So now that we've presented our first round of concepts to the client, we now enter the edit stage. We always outline the amount of edit stages in our proposal to keep everyone on schedule, on budget, and to manage expectations. Oftentimes, our clients' edits can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. So we have this philosophy that in order to get to the truth, you have to ask a question 3 times. We really try to understand where our client is coming from throughout this whole process and really shepherd that dialogue. Sometimes our client wants to merge elements from different concepts together. For example, they want to use the logo from concept 1 and the package from concept 3. And it is then our job to assess if these moves make sense or if their requests are ridiculous and don't make sense. So while we're implementing these edits from our client, we're also trying to think 2 steps ahead. At this point, we start to build a relationship with the print vendor just to understand their capabilities and if there's any print techniques that we can use to really elevate the packaging to its highest potential. So earlier in this video, Erin and I discussed how we create brand systems. And this is really important because we never just design a logo and we never just design the front of a package. We design a system that allows us to scale to other touch points within a brand. Oftentimes, we're also designing multiple flavor SKUs, case packs, sales sheets, trade show booths, a website, and the list goes on. So upon the completion of a project, we will then follow up with our client just to get some feedback and see if they are happy with the result.
The repackaging that you guys have designed is just, people love it. And it's a little piece of art, and the design, I mean, it really catches your attention as you're even walking by the aisle that it's sitting on. You can just see it pop out there with the blue or the red.
Yeah, it's been great. Like, especially at Expo West too, we had plenty of people just stop just so they could take a picture of it. They didn't even care what it was. They just wanted to stop. And, like, we had a lot of design folk actually do that. But they just come by, stop and look at it and be like, whoa, pull out their camera or pull out their phone, take a photo and be like, I really like that design. We're like, yes, thank you.
That's awesome.
So,
What? Here's the final result.
Did it.
Yes. Good job. Congrats. So yeah, that's the process of how we got to redesigning Big Island Coffee Roasters. I think you guys crushed it. It's something that I'm really proud of.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this project in our portfolio.
Yeah, and I think it illustrates what I mentioned earlier in the video is it's about people, and working with Brandon and Kelly, it was just a real joy. The entire process was really smooth and seamless, and they were really stoked in the end. And the second part is, I think this is something that I'm really proud of, the project that we could put in our portfolio, and I think it's going to get more work. It's definitely a feather in our cap, and it's something I'm really, really happy for. And even though the budget wasn't there, we had 2 out of the 3 Ps, and that's all that matters. We're all happy. So that's the process, how to design a package.
Yeah, that was a lot of information, so we hope that you learned something from this video. If you liked it, be sure to drop a like below. For any future content ideas or anything else that you'd like to see from us, comment below. And if you'd like to join our tribe, hit subscribe.
And you know what? As always, life is better when you do good work.